Indians in India and abroad. Assalamu alaikum, namaste. I'm Muqtedar Khan. I'm a professor at the University of Delaware in the United States of America. I'm originally from Hyderabad in India. Today I wanted to reflect upon what happened with the Supreme Court decision about the Babri Masjid and the Janma Bhoomi dispute. I think this is a pivotal moment in India's history. And unfortunately, this came on a day which in India would be written as 9/11, the 9th of November. And so I hope it doesn't become a 9/11 as far as Indian Muslims are concerned, or for India itself. Today is also the birthday of Prophet Muhammad. This is the day on which Muslims are supposed to be happy, but unfortunately, they have been dealt with a very severe blow. Having said that, I must confess that nobody, and certainly I don't, have the capacity to predict what the future implications of this Supreme Court decision is going to be for Muslims in India or for India itself. And therefore, I can only reflect on what it means now. This is a blow to Indian Muslims' perceptions about India. What has happened is this: the Supreme Court of India has essentially privileged mythology over reality. The Indian Supreme Court has succumbed to the pressures of majoritarian politics. It is obvious that they came up with what they thought was perhaps the wisest possible decision given the circumstances. They made a few gestures towards Muslims, acknowledged that there was no proof that Muslims had destroyed the temple and built a mosque on it. They also acknowledged that injustice was done to Muslims in 1949 when statues were put in there. Injustice was done to Muslims in 1992 when the mosque was destroyed. But they made this juristic trickery by making a distinction between the land and the structure, and in the absence of a structure, they also recognize that because of Hindu beliefs that the Hindu god Ram was born there, they had some kind of prior right to this land. If it were just treated as a land dispute, it is quite possible that the judgment would have been different. Nevertheless, I think the Supreme Court figured that if they made this decision in such a way that it would not satisfy the needs of the Hindutva movement and the Hindu majority, which controls the country at the moment, then perhaps they might unleash violence and instability in the country. And therefore, I think in their wisdom, they thought it was best in the long run to suppress the rights of minorities and to appease the Hindu vote bank. So this appeasement of Hindu nationalism, which has essentially in the last 30, 40 years tried to create a Hindu vote bank by essentially inciting hatred towards Muslim minorities, by also retelling the history in the past in such a way that Muslims are reconstructed as foreigners, as invaders, as cruel invaders who merely exploited India rather than build India. And by trying to create a schism and essentially dividing India, they have succeeded in creating a sustainable Hindu vote bank. A vote bank that is so drunk on hatred of the minorities that it is immune to lack of good governance. So even if the Indian economy does not do well, even if erroneous policies have been implemented, as long as Muslim minorities are subjugated and they are shown their place, the Hindu vote bank is willing to vote for the Hindu parties. And for that, I would congratulate the RSS and BJP. They have been very successful, but what they have done in trying to achieve this is not sown the seeds for a united and strong and pluralistic and democratic and vibrant India, but have sown the seeds for divisiveness. They have not only divided the Indian community between majority and minority based on religion, but they've also divided the Hindu religious community, dividing them among those who want a theological, religious-based state and those who want a secular and democratic state which treats all minorities and everybody, regardless of their religion and their ethnicity, equally. So this divisive agenda today notched up its second victory. The previous one was the elimination of Kashmir as a state, the only state in the Indian Union which was a Muslim majority state. So now there is no Muslim majority states in India. In fact, Kashmir is not even a state. But I fear that in the long run, this has essentially established the basis for more tension, more anger, more animosity between the communities because there are groups in India which think this is not the end of the dispute of Ram Janma Bhoomi and Babri Masjid, but this is the beginning, which means that they have a list of God knows how many, minimum 200, 200 mosques they would want to erase and build temples all over the country doing that. And by breaking these mosques and also making India's legal system and law enforcement and government essentially part of this cohort that is subjugating the rights of minorities, they have destroyed the faith that the minorities may have had in India's secularism, in India's democracy, in India's legal system. Until now, Muslims had had a lot of faith in the judicial system of India. I'm not very sure that exists today. My message to Muslims is that they take this on face value and they accept it. It's just a mosque. The entire earth is a mosque. This entire universe is a mosque. We can pray anywhere. So let's not get too agitated, too excited about a building that was not often used as a mosque anyway, and try to create more discord and cause deaths and misery to other minorities. We must also recognize that in many parts of the Muslim world, Muslims themselves are blowing up mosques. I think Muslims have blown up more mosques and destroyed more mosques in Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria in the past 5 years than RSS or the hoodlums who go around supporting Modi could ever even want to. But I think that there are two things that we really need to do to use this, as the Prime Minister Modi said, that this is an important event, this is now done, it's in the past, let's move forward and try to build a nation where everybody's rights are protected. If we are to take this decision of the Supreme Court seriously, then the other party should also take the Supreme Court and its decision and the laws and the constitution of this country far more seriously. So I hope that this decision to hand over this piece of land to the Hindu majority to build whatever they want on it. The Supreme Court also has recognized that by making this decision, it has done an injustice to Muslims and as reparations perhaps has allocated 5 acres of land to Muslims to build a mosque elsewhere. Some Muslims are suggesting that we should not take the mosque. I recommend that Muslims in India take that land and then build a museum on it, a museum to the history of Hindu-Muslim harmony that existed for centuries before the British came to India. To build a museum where we can record the history of the rise of Hindu nationalism based on vandalism and subjugation of Muslim minorities. Let us know that the path to Hindu Rashtra has a lot of skulls and skeletons strewn all over it. We should also use that museum to hold seminars, educational seminars, to make the point to Muslims and to others that in the long run, violence, communal hatred will only destroy India's economy and India's culture and give it a bad name worldwide. If India does well, everybody in India will do well, even the minorities. Yes, the relative rate at which the minorities are developing is not equal to the standards of other communities in India. However, I think that while recognizing that there is a threat to Muslim identity, to Islamic heritage in India, Muslims should move forward, use this decision to end this discord, which has become a sore wound in the Indian society, which separates people, to get over it, truly. And yes, I understand that Muslims fear that then there is Mathura, and then there is Kashi, and then there is this, and then there is that. Well, let us put the moral impetus on those who today are claiming that they follow the rule of law. Let us put the responsibility to act morally and with respect to India and Indian constitution and India's uh, ethos on those people who are so proud that they are building a new India. I think it is important for the Indian Muslim community to accept this decision and move forward, focus more on education, on development, and on building communal harmony rather than using this as an excuse to further alienate Muslims from the rest of the country. I understand that I don't live in India anymore. My house is not in the danger of being raided by thugs supported by politicians and police and being burned down. And I feel free to say these things. But as someone who still cares about India, who still cares about my past, my heritage, my culture, I think that this important moment should be taken seriously by everybody in India and we move forward in a different direction. Yes, Muslims have always called India Hindustan. You can call it Hindustan, you can call it Hindu Rashtra. But what is important is not identity and symbolic gestures, but what is important is the values. So I hope that that Hindus who are now very happy will come out and show us what beautiful values Hinduism has. So far, what's been seen on the streets is not very inspiring. Thank you very much.